All right, hey everybody, TG here. And let's see, we're going to be getting into the markets a little bit. If you guys have any question about who I am, first time here, welcome. Come over here to profitpilot.com, and this is where you can get a little bit more information about me and check out the newsletters that I write and everything else that I post there. So good source if you guys want to find anything else about me. All right, so we dive into this market, which is a little bit crazy. I was just writing something today about the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And that feels very appropriate right now with what is going on with this thing. It's been interesting to see that basically the Nasdaq and the SPY, the S&P, have been going higher and higher and higher, despite weakening breath, meaning fewer and fewer stocks are moving up. So the market, the indexes, are really moving up on just a few stocks. And of course, they're the big ones, like Amazon and Facebook and Apple has been up, and Nvidia, those kind of names. But the indexes are not supported broadly based. We look at something like, let me go over here to the Nasdaq, and you look at something like this, and you must think, wow, this market must be on fire. The whole economy is doing great, and there must be a ton of things. It's like, nope. You look around, it's like, oh man, there's just not a lot to pick from. So it's been a handful of names that have been really moving the market up, and other than that, it's just kind of like, okay, when is this thing going to wear out? So I'm looking at this, and by every stat that I have, and every indicator and everything else that I have, that this thing should be getting tired and should be wearing out, and we should be starting to see the market pull back at some point. But as I said, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, so trying to short this thing has been very, very tough. Now, it is a general rule of mine that I don't like to short because it is challenging and this market does want to go up. And so I've been staying on the sidelines. I did think that the market was going to, forgot one thing. Let me get, I did think that the market was going to be working its way down last week when we did get that little bit of a pullback, and then it bounced right off. The way I've kind of been looking at it is it's like a skipping stone. It just skipped right off of the hourly 50 and the 15-minute 200. So, kind of talking about shorts in that situation, well, I guess a little too early. And I think part of the way we can look at that, even though everything was extended, is that the hourly 50 was still in a pretty good uptrend. Like it hadn't really spent much time getting bent or turned over, anything else like that. So if we kind of look at some of the other past examples, you can kind of see here that it got bent a little bit more, and then you can see here the hourly 50 was flat. Okay. So kind of looking at this, if the market's going to start rolling over at some point, which it seems awfully likely because I've been talking about here how the Moxie indicator has basically been going flat despite the market going up. It's a form of divergence. Not negative divergence because the Moxie indicator is positive, but it's just not exactly supporting it. You can clearly see that the Moxie indicator is not representing what price is doing. It's basically just been going sideways, and so it's kind of like coasting, like cruise control. But once this thing starts to break, and I've seen this before, once this thing starts to break and starts to wear out, even though price is going higher, this is the whole point of the Moxie indicator. This is the whole point, is to show you kind of what's going on internally with energy and momentum and all that kind of stuff, is that you can then start to see that the Moxie indicator has started to decline day after day after day, despite price going up. So while I am in the camp of saying, yeah, this thing needs to pull back, I'm not really doing anything about it, and so far it has been extremely challenging to even try and short anything like this. So, oh, and then one thing I forgot. So for the Moxie members, I'm doing a bonus extra live trading today. There may not be much that we're going to be talking about currently, mostly because a lot of names do keep kind of melting down. There are a handful of names that are up, but I think what I'm going to go back and do is just do a whole lot of education, talk about when things are good, when things are normal, when the breadth is good, and when we're not in the middle of summer. So we're going to be diving through a lot of that to say, hey, here's what we are looking for when times are good and when things are actually looking good again. So if anybody is interested in joining that, if you're not a member or anything like that, you can still subscribe and come in and join for this bonus live Moxie trading session. All right, and then if we look at the daily chart, again, talking about how the metrics are saying, yeah, this thing is overbought. Usually when price gets to the third ATR and jumps off that 8 EMA, it's pretty overbought. Well, we've been doing that for quite some time here on the NASDAQ. So, boy, this thing's a little bit crazy. Today, we got another, yeah, well, yesterday, I'll start with that. Yesterday, this kind of vertical move up seemed really weird, right? It's like, where did that come from? How did that thing happen? And again, talking about kind of the hockey stick situation, blow off top in a way, up, 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 and then poof, you just get this big move up, and you're like, seems strange, especially when it's already at the top. And you can see it caught a little bit of air. It's like it just jumped up and caught air, but that air created an air pocket. So right there, you can see that there was a gap between price and the 8 EMA and hit that third ATR. Today, we get price opening with a gap up. Like, is it any surprise? No, no surprise with what's going on right now. But it does make sense at this point that price didn't want to go further, because really, who the heck wants to go higher? Who's willing to buy that? I mean, we've kind of been surprised to think who's buying this still already. But at this point, it's like, I don't know who's up there wanting to buy and say, yeah, I'm willing to buy a new all-time high because I think this thing is going to go further and I think I can make money. That doesn't make sense. So I would be looking at some deterioration. As I said, the Moxie indicator on the hourly chart has started its decline, and I think that this should be, and I'm going to say that very loosely, but this should be the beginning of the end for this run, and we should be starting to see some sort of pullback. Not really sure when that's going to happen, because this market's just been a bubble fest. And once this thing does start to break down, I would generally target probably about the daily 21 for the initial move down. Sometimes further, sometimes shallower, but a lot of times it goes there, and then it might bounce or kind of catch some support, and then if it's going to roll down further, we're going to have to watch and look for that later. All right, then the S&P. Yeah, what's up, guys? So Imran, day trading, Saleh, good to see you. And yeah, so once I get done with these indexes, you guys start throwing out some names, because I got a tiny list of a couple things I want to talk about. But other than that, I want to see what you guys are seeing, if there's anything really much to be talking about. So with the S&P daily chart, pretty extended, it's up there at the third ATR. And on the hourly, what I have been noticing is that this last run up, you can see we've got higher high in price. We have a lower high in the Moxie indicator. This is a form of divergence, in this case, negative divergence. Price went higher, but it did on less energy and less momentum, as we can see via the Moxie indicator. And then in through here, the last day or two, we just have not been seeing strength on the 15-minute Moxie indicator. So, and then we've also had price just generally going up, and the 15-minute Moxie indicator just kind of not going anywhere. So I'm just seeing it everywhere that it's like, I don't know how this thing is still staying up. We should be seeing a reversion to the mean, or a move down, or pull back, or something somehow. Then we get into the Dow. It looked really strong the other day when it popped up, but ultimately it got stuffed right at its previous all-time high. The daily Moxie indicator is significantly below zero, so that's a big warning sign for this time frame. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the world is over and we need to short this thing and this thing's going to really roll over. It can mean that it's just not ready to go long. Like, that's kind of the tricky part about trying to short tops, is that they just may not go down, they can just go sideways. A good indication of that generally is EXPE. You can see here that, yeah, it's been moving down, but was there any way to make money? Not unless you were selling calls up here. That's the only way I could see to make money, because this thing did not actually move to the downside. It just mostly flagged sideways to downward a little bit. And then you get kind of these crazy pops like this, Disney, that moved down a little bit and then kind of popped. Now, it seems like it kind of popped out of nowhere, but here's a double bottom. And then it also got generally closer to the daily 200. And then I think if we also look at the higher time frames, well, what's up here? Check that out. Where did it bounce? Right off the monthly 10. So there you go. That's why for a lot of things I've been looking at the monthly and weekly time frames to give us some context, because the lower time frame charts aren't giving us a ton of information on some of these things. So, Ahmed, good to see you as well. Another kind of crazy one, come on, is Watt. Now, I'm not saying co-trade this, but it has a lot of volume today. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I do want to note, and this is where you got to be careful about double bottoms and double tops, because they're just areas of support and resistance, despite what indicators might say. And for Watt, maybe it's news-based, maybe this is just technical chart-based, but look at this, right here at a double bottom, and then pop. And it popped on big volume too. So there might be something here. I've watched this ticker for years. I just think it's interesting. I love the technology. I kind of just want to see what the stock does. So it's one of those fun things that I watch, and it came up on one of my scans. Now, was there any setup anywhere else? I don't think so. You could see a little bit of positive divergence on the 15-minute time frame. There's nothing I could do about it. There was no indication that this was going to do anything, go anywhere, whatever. So this is kind of an anomaly, and maybe because it's now happened, maybe there's something you can catch later. But this first pop, it's like there's just nothing we can do, and there's really no setup here on the hourly chart. For what I can see, it was pretty much just a bounce right at the double bottom, and as I said, maybe a news-based situation. And yeah, nothing really to look at on the monthly, weekly for that one. And then our cat, another random one. This did get on my list about 2 weeks ago. And again, not something that I'm really going to be trading because it went from very, very little volume to a lot of volume. And I don't like trading stocks like that don't have much history. But I did notice, even though this showed up on one of my volume scans, that it had pretty much a great Moxie setup. So again, not that I'm going to trade this one in particular, but I want to show you the setup because this is the Moxie setup. So what we can first see is there's a double bottom right here, and it's a bit of the 50-250 maneuver. So 50-250 maneuver, and maybe you didn't catch that, right? Maybe that one also came out of the blue, like what, and you're like, cool, great. What am I supposed to do about this? You let it settle, and then you watch it, and look what this thing did. It had the 8 stay over the 21 on the hourly time frame, and then price flagged into an uptrending hourly 50 and the hourly 200 with the Moxie indicator above 0 and a squeeze. It bounced off of the 15-minute 200, and then you can see here on the daily had the 8 over the 21, and right when this thing popped is right when price was able to get past the daily 50. So a very interesting series of events here that actually worked out. That is what I teach, and in this case it worked out exceedingly well. And on the daily chart you can also see one more thing. Here's your leg, here's your heel, here's the arch of the foot, there's the ball of the foot, there's the elf toe. So all of these various things that I teach and that comprise the Moxie trading system, this one filled. Now I will say, wasn't going to catch this thing. It's a random stock with weird volume and all that stuff that I wouldn't do. But what I'm trying to show you is if you ever see this again on a regular stock that has more interest and isn't so speculative, there's a good setup right there. So go memorize that one. The Moxie traders, you guys know what I'm talking about on this kind of stuff. So that way you can take everything that I teach and lessons and put it together. And here's a good example for you. Biotech breakout 3. Yeah, no problem. So glad that you're enjoying the overview of the markets. That's how I've been taught, and that I learned is you basically start from the top down. So you start from the indexes and work your way down. Occasionally I will look at kind of a bottom up to see, well, what is the rest of the market doing and what is it communicating? But right now everything's just a little weird. Everything's a little weird. All right, and then DDD. I kind of wish I shorted this one. This, I think, was a fairly easy short, although, you kind of take this same situation, you look at Amazon, and you think, oh, okay, well, should I short Amazon because it kind of looks the same situation? It's like, probably not. This is why I don't like to short, because sometimes you just don't know which one's going to go where. So with DDD, there was news that came out. Like right back here, there was news. I think they merged or got some sort of contract deal with some big company, maybe NASA or some government body. I forget what the news was, but there was news. This is why the thing jumped up. Generally, it did follow the rules. You can see how price pulled back into the daily 50. And then you can see how price bounced off of the hourly 200 and uptrend the hourly 200, and there was a double bottom right there. Now, the Moxie indicator on the hourly didn't quite catch it, but the 15 did. So if you look here, you can see there was a double bottom here, there was positive divergence here, the Moxie indicator was above 0, and price got over the 15-minute 50. So between these similar setups, it's like, makes you kind of think, somebody knew something. There were enough people that knew something about this deal or about this news that they implemented all the same things that caused price to go up, all the same patterns and all that. And so you could see double bottom, divergence, over 0, over the 15-minute 50, and all of this was a bounce off of the uptrending hourly 200. It worked out, and there was news. So It kind of makes you wonder which came first, the chicken or the egg, and just how many people know the inside. So, getting back to what I was saying, that was news into a generally weak market despite the indexes. Like, obviously, the indexes are going crazy, but the market itself is kind of not that great. And you could see that it just got overbought way outside the daily third ATR and off the 8 EMA. Those are the indications that I use to say that price is very overbought, which I'm seeing on the SPY and the NASDAQ. And then you could see that there was a big gap between price and the hourly 50, also showing that it was overbought and price was likely to come down or flag or go sideways, something like that. And then the clarity kind of showed up here is when price got underneath the 15-minute 50 and the Moxie indicator was below zero. That is the short. So that's what you look for. So there's the long setup, there's the short setup on the 15-minute time frame. And you can see it's all right there for us. And then on the hourly chart, the 8 got underneath the 21, and then price broke below the hourly 50, and it just kept coming down, down, down. It did one little bounce right here to continue testing the resistance of the hourly 50, and it just kept on moving down. So far, it's right back down to where it began, to the daily 50. So that was a heck of a ride, up and down. So that was a nice full round trip. All right, so guys, start throwing me some names if you're interested, and we'll kind of go around the market and see what we can do. Let me flip over to Amazon, and let's look at that in the eyes of DDD. So Amazon, a couple things happened. Jeff Bezos left as CEO. That seemed to be a pretty big reason for price to spike. And then we also saw that he's trying to go up in space. Maybe that's a rah-rah to Amazon too. So similarly to DDD, look at this. We've got a double bottom and we've got positive divergence, right? DDD had the same thing. And you can see here, we had the Moxie indicator nice and tight above zero, and price got over the 15-minute 50, just like DDD. So again, I always wonder out there, like, news versus something else, and that's what's going on. It's like enough people knew something to kind of set this thing up and then pop. But then also, like DDD, you see how Amazon overbought outside of that third ATR. And you can also see right there, price got off the daily 8, also overbought. And then also like DDD, you can see price very far away from the hourly 50, right? So at some point, we know price is going to have to come back down or sideways or at least meet the hourly 50, which it's doing currently. And then also like DDD, what do we get? We get the Moxie indicator below zero, and we have price below the 15-minute 50. And the 15-minute 50 looks like it's starting to kind of roll over and head to the down direction. So this looks awfully similar to DDD. Now, I don't know if it's going to do the same round trip that DDD did, like down here, back to where it began. Always possible. But as far as a long trade, definitely not a place to enter. Definitely not a place to enter. This is why I was saying up through here, this is risky. This is a very, very risky place to try and either maintain or go long. Would I short it? Yeah, it's a tough call. I'm not much of a person to try and short things, so that's not really going to be my directive. What I will say is look at DDD if you're interested in shorting and see if you can figure out how that thing went down, and maybe that's going to be the same situation, same roadmap that you can find out for Amazon. And then something like Apple. So this is the other side of how Amazon could have gotten. Way outside of that third ATR, it started to pull away from the 8 EMA on a couple occasions, and you can see that price got away from the hourly 50. And so this one did not decide to go down. In fact, what you can see is it continued to stay along an uptrending 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicator has continued to kind of move up like this. So it's kind of fixed that gap between the price and the hourly 50 a little bit, and it's still continued up. So this might be what kind of is holding the NASDAQ up. Back when a couple days ago it was Amazon holding the NASDAQ up. But these are kind of the tale of two different stories. One where it got extended and rolled over. Another one where it got extended, it flagged sideways for a little bit and continued on up. There were, of course, little differences and nuances to see as to why that's happening. But man, I still think Apple is at a pretty precarious, pretty dangerous place to go long. If you're in Apple, my goodness, good job. I would be cashing in. I'd be taking your profits because I don't know how much longer this thing can last being up here. This thing is getting pretty crazy. All right, then NVIDIA, same situation as kind of those two, and it looks like it's middle of the road. It had a stock split news, so it's kind of like when Tesla was going to have its stock split. People just ran this thing up into the split because the idea is that once it splits, it's going to be cheaper and the masses are going to want to then buy in. So run it up and then sell it into them. We've been seeing some deterioration, price up, Moxie indicator down, so just like the NASDAQ. And now the Moxie indicator is below zero. We can see that with the Moxie price trigger. And if you think about it, the Moxie price trigger, the Moxie indicator does a pretty good job of catching most of the trend. There's the price trigger to the upside. There's the price trigger to the downside or the exit. And then you can just see, the NVIDIA, super, super overbought. I mean, look how ridiculous this over the last couple days were. Do you see that it is so overbought that price was just floating off of the 8 EMA? So overbought. Finally getting a break here. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing kind of come down a little bit, mostly sideways, but also down. If you were long, great. I'd be cashing out. I would definitely be cashing out. I don't think there's any need or sense to be hanging on to something like this to the long side. And if you want to short it, that's tough too, because sometimes these things don't want to go down. They could just go sideways. All right, GBTC. Not much to say. Not much to say. First of all, it's kind of been just chopping around lately. I think that it did a major pullback, and it's really just trying to find its footing. And you can see here on the daily chart, the 8 is still below the 21. So the fast moving average is still below the slow moving average. Not much going on there. We've got a bit of a distance between price and the daily 50, which at some point you'd imagine either price is going to jump up to meet that or it's going to go sideways to meet it. But at some point, price and the daily 50 should meet. And then here, there just hasn't been any opportunity. Kept getting rejected by the hourly 200, got rejected by the hourly 200. I don't know. Maybe there's a bit of a double bottom with positive divergence forming, but there's nothing I can trade, nothing I want to tackle. There's just nothing really going on here. So kind of a gentle move down, kind of a little bit choppy at this point. Let's see, ETHE, Ethereum. Let's see what it looks like. But looks like there's trying to be a double bottom here on the daily chart into the daily 200. But the 8 is still below the 21, so I don't see any setup on the daily chart yet. And on the hourly, there could be some divergence. Here's your double bottom. There's your positive divergence. That's cool. But again, hasn't done anything yet because the 8 is still below the 21. There's nothing to do there. And then you can see here on the 15, price is still below the 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicator isn't looking very good. I mean, it's still very spread. It's below zero. There's just nothing there. So Ethereum, nothing to do here yet either. It could go sideways, could bounce a little bit, could go sideways to down. There's just no information right here. The only reason I would say it could bounce is daily 200, and also price is very far away from the hourly 50. They tend to bounce when they get too far away from the moving averages. And then beyond that, you could see that price got rejected by the underside of the hourly 200. So not a whole lot going on with this one either, especially for the long side. Let's see, mRNA. Let's see if you want to short it. Well, so Logo no Joko. Be careful about this stuff. I mean, this is what we're talking about with the whole market, the indexes. It's like, yeah, they look ridiculous. When do we short these things? You'd have to, the short, this is why I always tell traders, I tell my subscribers, I don't like to short in uptrends because basically you're trying to do a short only into a pullback. Like, you could have been right about this, but you'd have to just nail it perfectly. You'd have to get that little short and then get out, because then it reverses on you. And then, maybe you could have gotten this as a short and maybe it worked out for a little bit and then it reversed on you. So you got to understand, this thing is still in an uptrend. And so if you're trying to short it, you're just trying to short pullbacks. And sometimes those pullbacks can be correct. Like if you were to short here and here, those could have been lucrative. And maybe, well, I wouldn't have done that one because that's earnings. So, okay, fine, wouldn't do that one. But other than that, if you're trying to short this and trying to short this, it's been, no pun intended, but shortly lived. And I don't know. I would not offer that. I would not suggest that right now. Maybe it will work out eventually, but this is a tough market to try and short because these things just want to go long. Like, they just keep kind of moving up. And maybe it's one of those things that the faster they go up, the harder they fall. I don't know, but we don't see that yet. Loco no Joko, yeah, 200 times earnings. Earnings, has not been a thing. Like the PE ratio, any kind of math, any kind of fundamentals, all these things are trading crazy numbers to their earnings. It doesn't matter. They don't care about these numbers. This is just trade momentum. This is really what we're into. Is just trade momentum. Yeah. So just trying to shorting cycles. Sure. But boy, you'd have to catch it right. So that's kind of my answer. Is you'd have to catch it right. And let's see, BYND. No, I would not trade. I would not. So Mohammed, I would not go short on Beyond because I think it's had its short. So kind of like Loco no Joko and I were talking about shorting opportunities. For Beyond, the only thing I could see was that there is a gap between price and the daily 50. So what's my shtick, right? What do I always talk about? I want to see price pull back to a moving average, or I want to see price come down, test a moving average, bounce, and then go up along that moving average. So the fact that Beyond Meat has now come down from that gap, that unsupported move up and back down to the daily 50. I know it's below it, but basically down to the daily 50. For me, I'm satisfied. I think that the short was from here to here. Of course, there might be more, but I wouldn't short it. I don't think that there's more opportunity. If you got this short, then personally, I'd be saying, hey, that's a great run, because you're now coming into the daily third ATR and you are outside of the hourly third ATR. I mean, if we flip this around, somebody was enjoying this yesterday when I did the negative sign. If you flip this around, I'd be telling you, hey, that was a really good quick run. I'd be taking some profits, because if you manage to catch this run, I would definitely be saying, hey man, this thing just went vertical. Like, you had a pretty good run, and this thing just went vertical. That's now jumped outside of any of its kind of parameters. I'd be cashing some in. And you're coming up here on the third ATR, and you're coming, if you look left here, right here, where are you at? You are right into the top of this other range, right here. So you think about it, there's a lot of people over there. There's a lot of price action, and anybody in there who's probably going to defend it, right? So I would not continue thinking that Beyond Meat is a short if you wanted to short it. I think that's already been done. All right, then Wish. So Saleh, let's see. Let me jump over here because I know we've been trading Wish. Notice we traded Wish from here to, here, something like that. That basic idea. Because this on a weekly time frame is the leg, the heel, the arch of the foot, and now what we're doing is we're waiting for the ball of the foot. And at least on this time frame, we can't tell where the ball of the foot is. We just don't have the resolution. We don't know where this thing's going to stop going down. But when you look over here, get a little bit better picture. I still don't see anything constructive yet, but what I do see is price coming right here back down into the previous low with the Moxie indicator above zero. So there is some positive divergence. And I'm looking at that saying, okay, someday this will probably turn around and go long, but not yet. And I say that because price is still underneath a downtrending hourly 50, and the Moxie indicator is still very much below zero. If I want to go long, I want to see price over the moving average, over an uptrending moving average, and I want to see the Moxie indicator above zero. So right now we don't have anything like that, and so far these things just kind of keep breaking lower. So not a whole lot going on. All right, guys, let me go take a look back at the index. So this is why I keep saying I think we should be looking to the downside. I think we should get in pullback on the S&P. Careful about grabbing names that are extended to the downside, even though the market might move down. They may not, because names can kind of trade on their own. So right now it might be easiest to try and tackle the indexes if you want to do that. Otherwise, just sit on hands and wait for the next round. For the Moxie subscribers or anybody else who wants to join, I'm going to be doing a bonus live trading session today, starting at 1 p.m. Central Time. And we'll go for a little over 2 hours, and we'll see how that goes. All right, everyone, you guys take care. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in, and